What's up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. This is a video on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, one of our fours, and I'll talk about each of the other three briefly, but titled The Mechanics of the Human Jaw. And I'll talk about it for all the reasons that I talk about the jaw so often. What we do here on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company is allow the human body to work. We come at it through clothing, the only thing placed onto us physically. We are on Earth's gravity. There's a center line to the human being. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw, which naturally stabilizes our entire body. And I say that just like that in our intros. And I've talked about the jaw since the founding of In The Image Clothing Company. It's one of the biggest things in the human body. What we do is allow the human body to work. You can actually never train the human being. That's why it doesn't work. That's why people keep working out. That's why people keep going to chiropractors and keep going to physical therapists. The human body, like I said, has a center line that just needs to remain, and it also has just a neutral position to every joint. So really we just need to understand our bodies to the degree that we can allow them to be unaltered, okay? So there's 2 feet opposing the center line, gripping arches inward, keeping us vertical, and our clothing is placed on us at all times, okay? Just about. If our clothing's not centered, made from 100% natural materials, and just fitting correct, where I'll discuss here in a minute, it can't let our bodies work inside of it. If clothing's imbalanced, it'll pull our bodies out of their center line. And you've got muscles on both sides of the body, like the pectorals here, like the trapezius back here behind the shoulders, okay? These muscles connect from the shoulders to the sternum evenly on both sides, or they connect from the shoulder to the spine evenly on both sides, for example, okay? And there is just a center. The sternum's in the center and the spine's in the center, okay, as those 2 things that the insertions come to, okay? The 2 endpoints of muscles. Now, our clothing is what's altering the body of the human being. I say it like this: clothing is the only fix to human beings' physical problems, and I would say the same thing if I didn't have a clothing company, because we do much more than just clothing. We do give free modifications you can do to your own clothing. We will have In The Image Clothing Company clothing as something you can always purchase to just allow your body to work, but you don't have to purchase products to allow your gift from God to just to just work the way it was designed to. The human body is designed to work. There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled that, and it's just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. That's how I discuss it, because it is. There's just ranges of motion to everything. There's rotations, there's hinges, and in multiple ways. Yeah, the body just does what it does. So I'll talk about each of the other 3 sides real quick of In The Image Clothing Company. I'll talk about where clothing sits, and then I'll just get into really discussing the jaw and how it would just naturally work, and why it would just naturally work if it wasn't clothing that was altering it. Truly, I'll get into it. So what I was saying though is we don't just talk about clothing. Eating, sleeping, standing, walking, sitting, hydration, breathing, all the things we do, and really just about all those things involve the jaw. Eating involves the jaw, that's pretty obvious, okay? Standing involves the jaw because it stabilizes the entire body, okay? Yeah, breathing, it comes through the nose or the mouth. It goes through the center of the jaw in this tube in our neck, which is our trachea. Another thing that has to be in the center on Earth's gravity. So anyway, I could list through all the things that we do, really, as a human being. Our jaw is involved, and big time, okay? So yeah, In The Image Clothing Company music, another one of our fourths, where I show mostly the size and setup of guitars to not alter our hands. Our hands are essentially our shoulders, as our feet are essentially our hips. The human body just is all one. And so doing those fine little motor skills when we're playing guitar, we have to keep our hands in their neutral position, as well as our wrist, which is really our forearm, which is really our elbow, which is really our upper arm, which actually is then our shoulder, right? The human body is just all one, okay? So I also make music I place on In The Image Clothing Company music, and talk about other things with music as well, okay? Naturally doing it, making music, if you will, okay? Another one of our fourths is In The Image Clothing Company podcast. We have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. I get bold and blunt and raw and real, okay? We're on episode 146 of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, and it's really great. There's a lot of insights I give. Like I say, we're just all human beings placed on the same earth. We have one God, and we discuss him as he says that he is. And I don't do it perfect, but I really love to speak. I speak well, and we've got a lot of episodes behind us as of today's date already, so check it out, okay? And then we've got In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, the last fourth to mention, our newest fourth still. I mean, it'll always be our newest fourth, because it was the last one to get created. We specialize in purebred standard poodles, and we register them properly under the American Kennel Club and advocate for doing so, giving your dog a birth certificate. Poodle parade events are something we will have many of, okay? Here in the state of Utah, the United States of America, bring your poodles of any size that are purebred, bring your poodles of any size that are mixes, and we have a lot of different types of poodle parade events. Clean the Creek poodle parade events, where we actually pick up trash and debris around rivers, or if we do it at lakes, right, waterways, the dogs can get in the water and we can as well. But letting dogs stay natural is the goal, okay, for In The Image Clothing Company poodles. And so we get into depth with a lot of that, as I get into depth with the human body under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, okay? So yeah, breeding standard poodles as well is one of the things that we do, okay? Now, clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location. For the dogs too, before I move on, dog products that aren't specific to just poodles, but can be used for any dog on InTheImageClothingCompany.com. Yikes. InTheImageClothingCompany.com with human being clothing as well, okay? Staying centered, balanced, weight-wise, and just fitting the dogs correct, you know, collars, leashes, harnesses. Dogs get altered the same way human beings do. We're just bodies of flesh and bone on the earth, right? The dog's just a mechanical machine as well. So, for us human beings though, our clothing, no matter who you are, anybody ever, okay, it's just operations that just can't be restricted and inhibited, okay? Pants need to be entirely above the hips, so there's no restriction to the hips. Slightly higher in the front than the rear for the waistband angle, because that's just the position of our neutral hip functionality, okay? The pelvis posteriorly tucked, core muscles activated, hamstrings activated, working in conjunction with each other, and being vertical on earth, okay? And our tops have seams on top of our shoulders that need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders. I made a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here titled Shoulders Follow Shoulder Seams, and they do. That's going to be a big thing for this video about the mechanics of the human jaw, because the insertion of the musculature of our shoulders is the top/rear of the shoulder along the spine back here on the neck, which is the cervical spine, and then into the base of the skull. Then the muscles that are lower than this one here, that's the upper trapezius, like the mid and lower trapezius, they connect into the spine, like I was saying a few minutes ago, okay, about the musculature that connects to the center of the body on both sides, okay? So our clothing needs to be even, is the point with saying that in this, okay? So our edges of our shoulder seams need to just be as close as we can get right to the edges of the functionality of our shoulder, okay? Because the joint of our shoulder is the upper arm bone, and then everything up here in the torso, okay, like the collarbone and the scapula, which are those two big bones on the upper back. It's just a joint, and our clothing seam is just a joint, okay? We've got just the top body material here, and then the sleeve material joining together with a seam, okay? So they just need to be in the same location. And I'm saying that a little bit more thorough in this than I do in just like most all intros, just kind of like general ones, because of what that's going to do directly to the jaw, okay? And then two things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company are, first, just weaving a rope across the top of the human foot. There's only one way to do it. We call them shoelaces. But In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is what we titled just the only way you can actually shape a rope there. Okay, that's not altering all the mechanics of the feet. The neutral ankle and the neutral position straight from the heel of our foot up through the ankle and the lower legs outward curvature to the knee, and then the arches gripping inward, okay, rolling off the toes naturally. We get in depth with the anatomy, and I'm saying enough of some things here, like semi-deeply, before I talk about the jaw, because we're a clothing company. Yet, not really. We are only a clothing company for the sake of the human body's natural function. The goal for all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company is natural. And if you don't really know much about us yet, I want to make it clear why I'm talking about the jaw, when if you don't know much more than our company name, it's, aren't they a clothing company? Yeah, but only kind of, right? In ways. So here's the thing. We also tie our shoes, and we got to do it evenly, okay? So you've got your shoes laced up correct. You need to tie them evenly over toward the center line of the human being, because there's two sides to the body, okay? So opposing knots on opposing sides of the body make it even, okay? So let's talk about the second prerequisite is to remove all tags. Removing all tags from clothing anywhere inside, even in the shoes, is what we do, because they either cause a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or they just don't allow musculature to activate, and then the body's trying to do compensation because it's being altered, but the body can't compensate when everything's all connected. It all has a role to play, okay? So here's the thing with the jaw. It's big, okay? Let's talk about it like this first. Just where does the jaw stem from? Well, the jaw has musculature that comes from our collarbones here, okay, which connect at our sternum, which is in the center, and then they come out and connect to the very peak of the shoulder. That's actually, when I say shoulder seams need to sit behind the peak of the shoulder, it's behind the peak of those collarbones, because shoulders follow shoulder seams, okay? This collarbone determines where your shoulders go, because it connects to the center and then all the way out to the edge of the shoulder joint. So there's a muscle called the sternocleidomastoid, and I talk about it. I actually made a video here under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company titled The Jaw and the Sternocleidomastoid. Up here at the base of our skull, okay, well, a little bit above the base of the skull in the back, right behind our ear, really, it's right behind it, there's an insertion of a muscle to the actual skull bone. And it travels there, down, just barely clearing the rear of our lower jaw right here, okay? And it connects right down here, traveling down our neck, to the collarbone, right next to where the collarbone meets the sternum, which is in the center of the body, okay? But then it also splits off and it inserts as well right into the sternum right here, okay? Just right off to the center on one side, and then there's one of those muscles on the other side as well, and same thing, comes down from the mastoid, really, right, is what it is, right here at the, right behind the ear on the skull, connects there, comes down the neck, connects to the collarbone right next to the sternum, and it also connects to the sternum right off to the center, okay? So you've got these sternocleidomastoid muscles, which you can see right here, okay? So those come up into the jaw, kind of, meaning they come up into the head, they barely clear the rear of the lower jaw, okay? You've got, as you can see here, these tendons coming up through my neck, through my collar. They actually move my collar when I like tense the muscles of my jaw like that, okay? That comes up right to the rear corner of the lower jaw right here, okay? And yeah, we've got our trachea that comes up through the center of the jaw, and the lower jaw bone just goes around the trachea, okay? You can see this is called an Adam's apple. It's more prominently seen on men, just because of the way that it's shaped is different from men to women. If you can see here, I can move my Adam's apple up and down just by moving the musculature. That's the trachea. It's a tube of cartilage in the throat, comes down, and it comes right between, as you can see, the sternocleidomastoid muscles, and then right down in line with the sternum, okay? So, yeah, I've had my sternum, this is just context for this, okay, and I've said this mostly under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, but entirely cut in half, because I've had 2 full open heart surgeries. So, where your sternum is, down here from the bottom of your rib cage, up here to the base of your trachea, mine's been entirely cut in half and opened so they can work on my heart. Okay, so just meaning I've got some experience with the sternum firsthand like that. Now, I understand if there's a little bit of wind noise. This lower jaw bone, it comes up right here, okay? From the center here at our chin, comes around, it curves at the back, barely clearing that sternocleidomastoid muscle, and it comes up, and then right here, right at the front of our ears, you can see I've got pretty low body fat percentage, and my hair is pretty short, so you can see a lot of this well on my body, which is good for the visual. The jaw will pivot right here, kind of right at the front of the ears, sort of like right at the top of the ears. It will connect into the skull, okay? So our skull is up here. There's a goose. All one big piece made up of a lot of little plates of bone, okay? Kind of like the earth, how it's made up of plates, tectonic plates, but it's all one crust. It's like our skull. And our lower jaw pivots right there at the front of our ears, okay? And you can see it, okay? And then not only right there at the front of the ears, there's a kind of a point to the jaw, the lower jaw bone, but then also right here at our cheekbones, there's another little like point where it kind of sits into the skull, okay? So right here, and you can see them moving, okay? Now, our lower jaw bone has musculature connecting it up into the head that goes clear from the base of the lower jaw bone here on the sides, all the way up into our skull, clear up here above our ears. And you can see that too, okay? See this? Up there. I mean, it comes pretty close up to the top of the crown of the head. That's really what it is. The crown of your head, right, that goes like around, like you picture wearing a crown where that would sit, that's right above those insertions of the musculature that comes from your lower jaw all the way up. And that's why there's a crown there, because that's just where the musculature inserts, right? It's just the shape of the skull. So the jaw is huge. And okay, our head is just this ball that's on the very top of the rest of our whole body, and the body is getting affected by gravity from the foundation up. So this is a big thing. If your feet are altered, if you're tying shoes unevenly, if you have shoe laces, which we have to remember is just a weave of a rope, and you're either going to have the weave pushing this way, or you're going to have the weave pushing this way, meaning the pressure for the right shoe will either push inward or it'll push outward, essentially, just depending on which side of the rope you're weaving on top. If it's going over toward the inside, okay, it'll push down on the inside, or if it's going over toward the outside as you like weave the ropes up, then it'll just make room on the inside and essentially push down the outside. Okay. Anyway, look up In the Image Clothing Company's official shoelacing technique. That's what it is. That's why we do it. It doesn't do anything to your feet. It's just shaping your shoe the way your foot is shaped. picture like a cowboy boot that's pretty well just kind of encapsulating your foot, and it sits pretty well, just like a leather boot that you can slip your foot into. And then take that, and once your foot's in there, just like shrink it down nicely onto your foot. But it's just shaped so nicely the way your foot's shaped. That's what In the Image Clothing Company shoelace technique is, okay? And then same with tying shoes evenly over toward the inside. The feet just naturally roll inward because the toes are pointed kind of like an arrow. The big toes are the longest, and then it comes out and back for the, till you get to the little pinky toes. And so we just roll off the outside of our feet just because that's the way that the toes are shaped, to just press off the ground. And then the neutral ankle, the mechanics of arches gripping inward, okay? Just like the hands. The feet are the hands, the wrists are the ankles, the lower leg is the forearm, the knees are the elbows, the upper leg is the upper arm, and then the shoulders are the hips. The spine just connects the arms and the legs, okay? The body's very, very simple. We discuss it like that here. Well, that's just how it is, but easy to be seen under In the Image Clothing Company, okay? Our main side is where we do that mostly. So, yeah, the jaw is going to be affected by your feet. If your feet don't have just the natural room to just grip arches and just be neutral, okay, neutral, natural, normal synonyms within the human body, then our feet at that point, if they're altered, will travel up to the jaw, because your feet are your hips, essentially, okay? So if your hips are altered, because they just will be if your feet are, then it'll change your spine and travel up to your head and just change the position of your jaw, okay? We talk about this, but I just want to give a little bit of context, at least from clear down at the feet in this, because you have to, because the human body can only ever work activated as a whole. It's all there. It's all going to affect everything else. So, yeah. Okay. The jaw, because it is determined by the shoulders, and because shoulders follow shoulder seams, what happens so often is people's shoulders don't work in their only normal location, meaning they're in chronic patterning and scar tissue, which is what we do here under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, is get out of these things and just allow our bodies to work, because we just need to know how they do and then just not restrict them. So I discussed the anatomy of the human body in depth, and we let these things happen. But if our tops aren't fitting on our bodies correct, our shoulders, which, discussing it this way, just meaning the collarbones, okay, that we talked about, they will just follow the shoulder seams. So look at this. If my shoulder seams are in front of my shoulders, well, my collarbone is just going to follow the seam, okay? And now you've got your shoulders in front of your head in a position they just don't actually work in, because, well, we need to clear things, right? This collarbone needs to be back here and back here, with the shoulder seams back there behind the collarbones, so that we can open our airway. Just look at this. I'll turn sideways for a second. If my shoulder seams are behind my head, yeah, but behind the peak of my shoulders, the collarbones point at the top of them, my collarbones will just follow the seam back there, and now my arms are neutral in line with my body, okay? I can straighten my elbows, and they're just straight down with gravity. But what this allows is an open, neutral airway, that trachea that's going through the center of the jaw, but then also where the collarbones come down here to the sternum, there too, okay? The trachea comes through the center of those insertions of the collarbone to the sternum, okay? So just look at it as just one straight tube down with gravity when your shoulder seams are behind your shoulders at the peak, okay? Now, if the seams are in front of my shoulders, now look. Now you've got this curving of the spine, the jaw moving, and you can hear it in my voice. It's kind of cut off and closed off, and it sounds nasally because it's literally physically just cut off and closed off. The trachea gets pressed into the bones here, the sternum and the collarbones, and things just aren't in their just open, neutral position. Just like kinking off a hose, right? And the water just can't flow through. The trachea, essentially that's what it is just kind of kinking it off, and then you can't breathe, you can't drink through it or swallow through it, you can't speak, right? This Adam's apple, like we were saying, it's the voice box. That's where the vibration and resonance comes from when we speak. That then resonates up into, our sinus area and our mouth that need to just be all neutral, okay? So, but it comes from clothing, that's the point, and it truly does. There's no other way you could address it and actually fix the problem, if there's a problem, right? Because there wouldn't be a problem unless clothing was placed on our bodies to alter them, like I showed with the seams of the shoulder tops, okay? So, yeah, I mean, that's as real as it gets. Let's look at this, the sternocleidomastoid and the lower jaw bone. And I made that video where this is what I said in it and showed, but I'll show it here because what I just said about the shoulder seams and their location, they have to be behind the peak of the collarbone, because then the collarbone will just follow them, opening up the whole rib cage, the whole neck, and then the jaw can sit. Watch this, ready? Shoulder seams behind the shoulders, collarbone follows them back, okay? Now the jaw can sit neutral. Now when our jaw pivots on this joint here where the skull bone meets the top of the lower jaw bone right in front of the ear, like I was saying, and you can see it, okay? When that pivoting's happening and you're in a neutral position, just with Earth's gravity, you're just straight up vertical because, okay, your pant waistline's sitting correct, your shoes are not restricting your feet, laces is the big thing. Well, feet are flat on the earth too, right? Rather than heels, which will just move everything anyway, okay, on your shoes. Our feet would always just be flat on the earth. The man-made shoes that we have place our heels elevated. It's like you're just always standing on a rock or a piece of wood under your heel only. And your feet are just like this. And your whole body is curved now like this, okay? And it changes your jaw. Okay, pant waistline, same thing, right? If it's falling, it's just taking your hips with it. If it falls in the front, your hips go what's called anterior, lower in the front. It'll snake your spine just because your spine's connected to your hips, and it puts you in the same position as if your shoulder seams were in front of your shoulders and your shoulders are following them here, okay? So anyway, neutral, just in line with gravity, gripped arches at the feet, traveling up, very slight bend and everything just to keep the musculature working, and there you go. Just how the body would stand if it had never been altered, because it's just designed to do this, and it's actually the easiest thing for it to do because there's less energy being put on it the straighter up it can get with the center of gravity, okay? Just how God designed the body to work, and it will. We got to be intentional about clothing though, okay? That's really the actual reason why people are having physical problems with their body, okay? Truly. So the jaw here will pivot on the joint here where it connects up here at the top of the lower jaw and the skull right in front of the ears. Okay, you can see it pivoting, and it's actually going pretty well just straight up and down. But if we're in that position that I just showed, heels on shoes, collapsed feet arches because of lacing, waistlines of pants falling in the front, shoulder seams in front of our shoulders, and your body's all snaked front to back as it comes up, meaning going forward, back, excessive bends in musculature. It's just harder for your body to work, okay? You're just into a deeper range of motion than if you were just in line, okay? Well, that's coming up to your jaw and putting it forward, okay? So now when your jaw hinges here at the top of the lower jaw, right where my beard is a little bit longer than my hair, and that's exactly where, as long as I cut it right there, okay? Because that's what I do, is when I shave my hair shorter than my beard, like this, I feel my lower jawbone right there. Okay? See how it's pivoting? So I start right there, and then I shave up. Okay? So you can actually see. The beard even helps with the visual for this. Okay? Put my fingers right there where they'll actually kind of go between the joint when my jaw opens. Okay? And you can see that. So, yeah. Okay, so here's that part where it actually pivots. And then it kind of comes down and comes up into the cheekbones. Right there. Okay? So, the big thing is, like I'm saying with the ranges of motion, we want everything to be pretty well straight and straight up and down because of Earth's gravity. Well, if you're in a neutral position, just clothing fitting on you so your body is not restricted. That's really the only way we need to do that. You don't need to work out. You just got to let your body work, truly. Then, in this position, now the jaw will just be going basically up and down with gravity, like this. But if your body's excessively curved front to back because of all the things I discussed a minute ago here, imbalance-wise in clothing, and you're like this, okay, knees excessively bent, feet arches collapsed, pelvis rotated forward, anterior, spine excessively curved, shoulders in front of the body, upper part of your spine here at the cervical, okay, it's just the same at the base of your skull down to the lowest vertebrae, which is your tailbone at your hips. It's the same spine, so it'll all get curved if any of it is. Now your head is forward and up like this, and your jaw is sticking out, and now at this point you've got your jaw, and when it pivots, okay, right here in front of the ears, it's actually kind of pivoting backward. Okay, look at this. I'll do that a few times, and then I'll stand vertical, just in line with gravity, the way that it would pull on the human body. Watch this, ready? So here in a bad posture position, quote unquote, there's no such thing as posture, but a bad mechanical position for the body because of what's placed onto it physically, clothing. It's not posture, it's not something to work on, it's something to just not restrict, truly. Okay, look at this. Okay, it's kind of like swinging back. Well, also look back here. These sternocleidomastoid muscles that are supposed to just barely clear the lower jaw when you're standing vertical, okay, there should just be barely any room there. Okay, just so there's enough for your jaw to clear. You can see them pretty well on me as I turn. Watch this. Okay, that's me standing, just how I stand, nice and vertical. But when clothing is causing your body to be like this, okay, so snaked, like I'm saying, front to back, and just so out of its only neutral position, now your jaw has a bigger gap between the sternocleidomastoid and the lower jaw bone. And so now when it swings, it's just kind of swinging, right, when it hinges rather than just going up and down. So now it's like back and forth like this. And now in this position, look at my trachea tube that we need to be open and free to breathe through and swallow through. My jaw at my chin here, at the front of the lower jawbone, comes swinging back and hits almost, at least, and it really can get to the point where it does, into the trachea. Look at this. Right? Here's the jawbone at the lower part of it, and here's my Adam's apple. Okay? If I'm standing nice and vertical, the jaw is just going to go up and down. And there's still plenty of room for that neutral neck, okay? And the trachea is open airway. But when my body is so hunched forward and snaking front to back, now the jaw swings back as it comes down and basically hits into my Adam's apple. Okay, can you see that? That's what I'll do for the visual of that for this, but that's really cool to be able to see. I thought about this video last night. I've talked about the jaw, I've made many videos about the jaw, but I wanted to do one where I pretty thoroughly really went over the mechanics of the human jaw and then gave a lot of visual where you can actually see what's going on. So anyway, the big thing is clothing. That's the point. That's the whole point, not only of this video, not only of In The Image Clothing Company on how to allow the body to work, but that's the whole point that's why the human body doesn't work, if it doesn't, in people's cases. It's clothing. Yeah, I mean, gravity is just pulling on your clothing and also your body, and something like the end of the collarbone is just a peak of a bone. Even if you've got more fat content on your shoulders than I do and your bones don't actually stick out and protrude like this, still there's just a bone there. It's just it's a joint. It's where the motion happens. The seam of our tops is just going to determine that. So anyway, there you go. Okay, the jaw and how it works in a way you can actually visually see, and then what reasons would be causing it to have problems if you're having problems, and it really is clothing. But then we can think about this. I think there's somebody coming over here, which is fine, but probably try to wrap this up real quick. If there's a tag in the rear of the collar, if there's a dreaded collar seam, under In The Image Clothing Company, look up our dreaded collar seam modification, okay? Keeping collars centered is a must, because what I was showing here, you can visually see the collar of my top gets affected by the tendons here that go into the jaw from the shoulders. They physically push the collar out of the way when my jaw muscles contract. Look at that, okay? So when I talk about the importance of keeping collars centered, yeah, no fashion matters, okay, for this. No opinion matters. No, it doesn't matter if you care or not to care about it. It's the only fix. It's clothing, okay? So, yeah, keeping collars nice and snug above the collarbone's insertion to the sternum, okay? Because then they can just move the collarbones without just material like against them, you know? Yeah. And centered, okay? And that's what that dreaded collar seam modification under In The Image Clothing Company will do, is help the collars to really stay pretty well centered, even when there's a thicker seam in just one little part of them than the rest of the whole collar that should sit evenly around the circumference of our neck, okay? Just meaning all the way around the neck. But then you do have a tag in the rear of your collar of your top, let's say, and you haven't removed it, one of In The Image Clothing Company's 2 prerequisites. That position I was talking about, where not vertical here, nice and neutral, where you've got rotations and functionality at the shoulder, you've got the jaw hinging up and down, and you've got an open trachea, you've got the collarbones in a neutral position, and the arms can just be neutral with gravity. That tag here will just cause a physical gap behind our spine. It's directly on our spine if it's in the center of the rear of your top. So now you'll be like this. But your rest of your body from there down is not going to just stay in its normal location. So like I was saying, how our body can start to snake front to back from our feet being altered, from heels, tags in shoes, lacing done incorrect, or tying unevenly, which does more than just front to back. Tying unevenly will rotate your body left to right as well, all the way up it, okay? But yeah, anyway, no, this is good. This is really good. I love this, because that's huge. Yeah, our shoes need to be tied even, otherwise you just have a rotation anyway up your whole body, because you just have knots going only one way on 2 sides of the body, okay? Like I said at the beginning, opposing sides of the body need exact opposite knots tied in our shoes, evenly over toward the inside, okay? The other one of our 2 prerequisites, okay? So the tag, though, the one I was just talking about, the other prerequisite, removing it, it will cause your body to snake from clear up here at the top of your collar down to your feet, because you push your spine out of the way right here at the collar in the rear of your top because there's just a physical gap from a tag. Now that pushes your jaw forward and curves your spine, which then travels down. Like I said earlier, all the spine's the same thing, whether it starts at the base of the skull or it starts at the base of the spine, at the hips or pelvis, right? It'll do this, it'll affect both ends from either end. And then now you're in the same position we talked about, okay, that front to back snaking in the body, and the jaw is now inhibited. That's just from a tag alone in the rear of our top. And then you've got tags in the rear of your pants if you do, and you've got, right, imbalances all over. Drawstrings tied uneven, right? Instead of how drawstrings affect body mechanics under In the Image Clothing Company, the slipped, lap, knot, loop the single end over, toward the center line. Everything comes to the center of the human being. That keeps our hips horizontal entirely. Okay, that's what I'm using right now to keep my pants on, okay, with my drawstring. So, anyway, yeah, okay, the jaw. It's clothing. It's the only fix to human beings' physical problems. And I know that some of our videos are very long. I've said, going forth, In the Image Clothing Company's video content won't always look like it does even as of today's date, and then back, toward the very founding. These are all foundational videos where I want to do all that I need to explain things as thoroughly as I need. So, it's apparent that we've always been saying the same things since the founding, because I really do know the fixes. I really do know the anatomy of the human body in depth. And there's a reason we're a clothing company, okay? And there's a reason this is eternal truth. There's a reason this applies to every human to ever live. And there you go, okay? So that is the mechanics of the human jaw, pretty thoroughly explained, okay? You've just got a lot of musculature coming from the neck into the jaw. Like I said, musculature coming from the lower jaw up into the very upper part of the head here at the crown of the head. And then all the other things that I showed and discussed in this video. Okay. Not only are the hands the shoulders and the feet are the hips, but essentially the feet are the jaw and the hands are the jaw. Actually, I did make a video one time under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company here titled, I don't know what order I put it in, but the hands, feet, and the jaw. It was titled something like that about those three things. Because yeah, if your hand is altered, well, it goes straight to your shoulder, and then your shoulder will be altered, which goes straight to your jaw, okay? If your feet are altered, like I was saying with the rotations of uneven shoe tying, it'll travel up from your foot to your hips, rotate your pelvis, okay? And travel up your spine to your shoulder, through your whole body is really what I'm saying by to your shoulder, out to your hand, but then also just to your jaw, okay? Because if your spine's altered, it's in the center, and so your jaw will be as well. There's a video titled Workouts Don't Help the Jaw under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. At least I made one time. Yeah, it's probably still there, okay? Just meaning your jaw has to stay centered for your whole body to even possibly stay centered, because your jaw is stabilizing your entire body. So things like dental work. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled The Root Canal Story. I had a root canal on my front left tooth, and they just didn't even finish it. So much extra filling material was left behind that tooth. My jaw hasn't been able to mesh anywhere near normal, meaning my teeth actually haven't been able to mesh since I was 13. I'm 26 years old now. It's been a whole process. That's been one of the big things in getting out of these chronic patternings and scar tissue as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company that I've personally had to do. But it's been one of those things that's necessary because it's taught me a lot about the anatomy and what things really affect other things in the body. Okay, so teeth need to mesh relatively well. We don't need some like perfect looking smile, bite, alignment, but our jaw just needs to be able to track evenly, and yeah, it needs to stay in the center of the body. So there you go. Okay, there's a lot of videos that I could reference, but I won't reference at least many more if I do say any more right here under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. But just the importance of it. Okay, the jaw and its mechanics for the entire body, down and out to the extremities, the tips of the fingers, the tips of the toes. Remember, nails are so important. Fingernails and toenails fully supporting the ends of your fingers and toes. Cut relatively flat on the tips. You can round the corners so they're not sharp, but that flatness on the tips allows the fingers to have a good grip where they don't roll around. And again, if your hand is altered or your feet are altered because they just don't have their natural support from nails, it'll travel all the way in, okay, to the center line and to the jaw, okay, the whole body. So, okay, that's a real like sigh, or like it's heavy. It's crazy how real all this is. It's yeah, it's like it takes it out of me almost sometimes in that moment, you know, it did to say all that, because it just is what it is. Okay, the mechanics of the human jaw, there you go, pretty thoroughly discussed by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. I don't know what that sound is. It sounds like a train. There's not a train track right here though, so anyway, shoot, stick around for the poodles. Come to Poodle Parade events if you'd like. Bring your, like I said, poodles or mixes of poodle, as the only kind of dog breeds allowed. Yeah, this is what it does to me to give this information, to be able to be the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, because what we discuss here really truly applies to every human to ever live, and this information can never be invalid, regardless if clothing design changes, clothing materials change, which ideally, and really more than ideally, they pretty much have to be made from 100% natural materials because our bodies are as well. But no matter what any time period to ever be, we're a human being designed in the image of God. Our body's mechanics will never change, and so what's required and what's placed onto them will never change as far as the angles and locations of clothing. Okay, so I feel like I want to take a nap after saying all that. Yeah, okay, there you go. Foundational videos, man. This is one of them. This is the thing. This is what I mean, where we won't have to make videos like this going forth because we'll have them documented in history, and that's why they're so thorough and long right now. I feel like I want to cry. I'm not even kidding. It's ridiculous what I'm able to understand with this. It's awesome. Okay, so there you go. It's the 16th of July, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Okay, be intentional about your jaw. Yeah, because the thing is, when we think about tucking our jaw to have good posture, quote unquote, really it's not quite tucking the jaw. It's almost the jaw coming forward a little bit at the lower part of it, because what happens in this quote unquote bad posture position, the whole snaking front to back of the body, is the jaw is actually tucked back. Like I was saying, it's almost hitting into our trachea and our Adam's apple for those men who have Adam's apples, right? But the jaw comes back like this, okay? And you're kind of like this. When you stand nice and vertical, just as if your body was never altered, this position, the jaw almost comes forward more in a sense, okay? But there just needs to be enough room behind it to clear that sternocleidomastoid muscle. So one of the things I talked about within that video, correlating the two, the lower jaw and the sternocleidomastoid, however it was exactly titled, we can get built up and bound up scar tissue and just musculature along the lower jawbone, and our ears are just a hole between the lower jawbone and the sternocleidomastoid. and they just need to not have all this excess built up cartilage that sometimes happens. Again, clothing is anything that clothes the human being. Things in our ears, okay? We have a lot of things we're placing in our ears in modern day and don't, okay? You can't alter the cartilage in your ears without altering the position of your jaw, okay? And it'll just put you in that same position, snaked front to back. This time, though, from these things, something placed into your ears, it's from there down to your feet. And that will collapse your feet arches because your jaw is being pushed out of its only position from something in the hole of the ear that doesn't allow the jaw to stabilize in its only neutral. And then the spine snakes down to the pelvis, changes the pelvis position, goes down the legs to the feet, okay? Again, the body is just all one. This is so awesome to be able to explain this. It's all in one video. I mean, this is amazing. So there you go, okay? The jaw does need to be able to tuck, kind of, but seen correct as far as all the stuff I've discussed in this. Yeah, because essentially me looking down like this is having my jaw tucked, but yeah, you just have to kind of see it with context, you know, because you'll have people talk about how to have good posture, and there's no such thing as posture. You can't, you know, try to get the body to do anything. It's all just something that has its only neutrals. So people will tell you things like, pull your shoulders back. Well, now you're probably choking like this, right? Because your collarbones are hitting into your trachea because your jaw is misaligned, and now you're just like binding things up. Same thing with the jaw. When people tell you to tuck your jaw, well, you don't want to be tucking your jaw if your shoulders are forward like this. That's what I mean. It's all just one thing. It all just has to work neutral with gravity. And you can hear it. You can hear quote unquote posture in people's voices. Like mine, I didn't used to be able to speak with this much like volume and resonance in my voice without like really trying to, you know, but that's the point, is what you're doing is trying to open up your airway if your body's not aligned, meaning neutral, natural, normal, okay? So, yeah, when people have nice, open, resonant voices, you can hear it, and then if you like turn and see the person, they probably have a well-working body in its neutral positions, what people would call good posture, okay? It comes from the jaw. Singing, you're not going to be able to form the shapes with your mouth you need to in order to sing well if your jaw isn't in its only working position, neutral, okay? The mechanics of the human jaw. And it comes from clothing, no matter what, okay? No matter who you are is what I mean, no matter what your situation is, no matter what else could possibly maybe be playing into it as well, okay? I don't know what the sound is, man. I'm not worried about it, but I want to make it clear, like I said earlier, raw and real in the Image Clothing Company. We're not trying to make any of these videos any higher production value than we need to, right? As far as like the quality of it, we don't want it to be all perfect. I want it to just be real. I'm standing here talking to you about your jaw, something you'll have for the rest of your entire life, and something that only works one way, something that's going to only be fixed by clothing. I'm seriously almost tearing up. This is unreal. I mean, how like I'm emotional about this one. This is cool. Okay. A big part of it's my personal experience with all I've had to go through, and a lot of pain. Let me be very clear. You know, getting my body out of all the patterning, it's been more pain than I've ever experienced in my life, and I've been through some pretty major things, in a lot of ways. Yeah. No exaggeration. Never been through as much physical pain as I've had to go through in order to get my body out of all this scar tissue and patterning that has been caused by oversized clothing imbalances, drawstrings, shoelaces, right? All the things we talk about, things in the pockets. Yeah, the root canal as well. But, you know, that's why I'm so big and bold on these things, is because I know the repercussions. I know what comes from, yeah, altering the body through something we might never even really think about. but the only thing placed onto us physically, our clothing. Okay? We just have to have that neutral position in everything. Okay? Through the whole body. So, thank you. Okay? This is where the credibility comes too. I think that's the big thing about why it's making me emotional as well. Like what I was saying about, I'm making all these foundational videos and they might be longer than most anybody will sit through, but the information's here if it's here. And so nobody can claim that what we're saying isn't true, because I discuss it so thoroughly, you couldn't possibly dispute that it is clothing. Okay? So, it's very humbling to me. Definitely. Yeah. Our tongue is a very strong muscle, and it's just going to sit, again, with gravity in the base of our lower jaw, in between our teeth. So, it just needs to stay centered. You won't be able to articulate your words if you just can't. Again, it's just a physical thing. We're just hearing sounds that are coming from movements of the jaw, the tongue, the larynx, right? The voice box. It's just as real as it gets, okay? In the Image Clothing Company, I mean, the actual real true fixes. And I don't want to try to compare, but I just know a lot of times people are trying so much. Chiropractors, physical therapists, like I said at the beginning, and I mentioned those things. Workouts though, diets. People can't seem like they can, they feel like they can't stay hydrated. We just have to know how the body works and just let it. And so it's not about us, but we really do give credible, truthful, eternal, unchanging, applying to all humans ever to live information under In the Image Clothing Company. And it's nothing more than just discussing God's design of the human being. So it's like I got a pit in my stomach, but like in a good way, like just like a sunk, deep-rooted, like this is it, like this is where you are, this is what we're doing for life. Like it hits me, and it's hitting me even more the past couple days even. Give or take 10-ish months, yeah, right around 10 months into In the Image Clothing Company as the founder. I still, it hits me really what we're doing here. Okay, so shoot. So yeah, okay, so thank you. This is, for my wife and my kids and my kids' kids and my grandkids. This is for the poodles, because we can, do the same things for dogs through balances and collars and all that, that I discuss. Letting dogs stay natural under In the Image Clothing Company poodles. This is eternal. This is for my own body for the rest of my life as well. All the things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company. So thank you.